So I'm going to sound like a broken record with my distractions, but especially for a puppy like Nikita, pretty much everything in the world is a distraction. And so what I want her to do is just to be able to, good job, focus off of distractions and look back at me. Because when she's going through something, when she's having a hard time figuring out what she's supposed to be doing, I don't want her to self-reinforce behaviors, to make decisions by herself. I want her focusing back on her handler to say, what am I supposed to do in this case? Are we scared? Am I running? Am I hanging out? Am I exploring it? What am I doing? And in those cases, if it's something scary, I'm just going to say, we're just going to explore it, or you don't have to worry about it. It's just a loud noise or a truck going by. But I don't want her to decide that she's getting freaked out just because she felt that. I want her to look at me and see that I'm calm and go, I guess I was worried about nothing. So that's great. So in this case, what I'm doing is I'm just teaching a check-in right here. So initially, I'm just going to put her in a sit, because if she's immobile, there's less things to do. Nikita, hi, good girl, sit, yes. So I'm going to stand to the side of her, good job. Then I'm going to wait for her to get distracted. She does see the treat in my hand, so that is pretty good. But looked away and then looked back at me, good girl. I'm going to wait for a bigger distraction than that, though. That was just kind of looking off. You're being very good, though. Yes, you are. Good, so something moved over here. Good, and then looked back at me. She gets a treat. My hand went in the treat pocket, which is a little distracting, but I'm going to let her get distracted. Good. Something else moving around. Checking out the neighbor's yard. Something on the ground. So she's looking away for this long, good girl. I think that was look at me because I started talking. But if she starts looking away for that long, I want to give her a hand. I want to make like a woo 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 or some kind of noise. I don't want to say her name, because if she's really distracted and I say her name and then she doesn't look, then that means, oh, I don't have to look at you when you say my name. She's doing a really good job. I want to make sure that the leash is pretty loose. So I don't want it to be tight on her, because if she feels like it's tight, then it's going to be constrictive and it's going to be obnoxious, and she's not going to like that. So it's nice and loose next to her. It's enough so that she's not going to get very far. She could probably move a couple inches, and that's as far as she would get. But I want to make sure that it's loose enough that she feels like she has some freedom, but not so loose and so, slack that if she took off, she would get a good running start. I want her to, if she sits up and stands up, she's going to be on a tight leash. So I have been, so there is a good example, and I've been ignoring her, which is a little unfair. So I'm going to put her back in a sit, and then we're going to do this for a couple more times, and then we're going to move on to this exercise with movement. Hi, good girl, sit, yes. So again, looking at me because I talked, I'm going to let her explore and then look back. Yes, good. So looked around and then looked back at me, which is great. Yes, good. So you'll be able to tell when your dog is really focused in this exercise if they're looking away at something and then look back at you. Good. I'm not going to put my hand in the treat pocket because she's kind of focusing on that. So that's like almost like I'm a distraction. My hand in the pocket is a distraction. So she knows I don't have a treat in my hand right now because it didn't go back. But good. So she did glance really briefly. Good job. And we're using higher value treats here because I want to really reinforce a check-in, especially because we're outside in a harder environment. Good job. And this isn't a super hard environment. There's not a whole lot going on, but it's distracting enough for a puppy. And that's what I want to do. I want to bring her into a situation where she can win, where she can focus off. We chose the backyard today. Good job. Because we went into the front yard and there's a bunch of kids playing across the street and some cars and things moving, and it might just be a little bit too much for her to focus off of. Good. So we're going to start in a lower environment, and then we're going to move up into more distracting environments. So looking away. Good. And then look back. So she is focused. She understands the exercise here. I could stand behind her. We kind of did that inside, but the further I am behind her, the harder it is going to be to look away from what she wants and over to me, because it's further for her head to turn to look at me. Except for Nikita, who looks at you upside down. So that's a brief description of the sort of immobilized distraction exercise because she's sitting, she looks at me, good job, and then she gets a treat. I start in front of her if it's a really distracting environment because it's easier for her to look straight into me, and then I move to the side, and then I'll move to the back. And I'm not going to be 180 degrees behind her because, well, for most dogs, except Nikita, who looks at you upside down, that's not fair. It's hard for their head to turn that far. But Nikita clearly doesn't have a problem with it. But I would probably stand about here at about 100 and maybe 40 degrees, maybe 160 degrees at the most, not directly behind, just so they could turn their head without having to get up and move around completely. And then you also want to make sure that when you have your dog in a sit, they're not following you, because if you've been giving them treats, especially in front of you, then they're going to turn their head. Hey, go. Good. They're going to turn to face you, and you want to make sure that you're able to stand to the side or behind them, because that's a little bit further for them to go, which is harder, which is more work for distractions. Let's go, Nikita. Good job.